Hey friends, and welcome to our March update. So there is a lot going on, and I'm going to try and keep it brief so you don't get bored out of your mind, but also there's a lot to cover. There's been a crazy amount of volatility in the marketplace. I know we've seen a lot of drops in portfolios. Values certainly going down as we're seeing a lot of pressure on the stock market from all the geopolitical problems that are happening right now. Let's go ahead and talk about Iran first. That is not a simple problem. It is certainly not going to be a issue or a war that is as truncated as being advertised right now. There is just no way to have the resolution that Israel and the US and honestly now the surrounding Arab countries, because of all the bombing, there's just no way in a short period of time to have all of those issues resolved. The leader that they've chosen to take over the regime in Iran is very much of the same, and Israel will not stand for that. President Trump has expressed disappointment in that being their choice. He's moving more assets into that area. He has said that he's going to start escorting ships through the Strait of Hormuz. And so these are things that are not indicative of this being a very short, will be done soon type of problem. Iran still has many drones that are very inexpensive and easy to send places and cause issues. They are running out of ballistic missiles, but the surrounding countries are also running out of the hardware that they need to defend themselves from the ballistic missiles. And it's a very complicated situation, and I don't expect it to end as quickly as they are advertising or hoping. It's not the same as Venezuela, which is also still a problem. Cuba, still a problem. A lot of geopolitical risk being added onto the table that is just making things more complicated. So the other thing that's come out of Iran is pressure on oil prices. So oil markets, we're feeling that price pressure here, even though we don't get as much oil from the Middle East region as other countries. Oil is a global market, and the supply has to come from somewhere, and prices are going to go up across the board on those other places to get oil. So certainly expect $4 a gallon on oil in the short term. And we all know that summer pricing for fuel is always higher anyway. And if we are not resolved in this Iran war between now and summer, you're probably going to see $5 a gallon gas again. Which is frustrating and it's hard. These are things we don't want to have to deal with, but that's the way it is. So plan for higher gas prices for a while, at least a month. We'll see how this plays out. If they're able to wrap it up as quick as they're saying, it will be a short-term price fluctuation. But it does take several weeks for supply to get back on track and for pent-up demand to be fulfilled. So you're still going to see higher prices, even if the war ends tomorrow, which it doesn't feel possible to me. But that, plan for higher oil prices. And then secondarily, what we're kind of also pressures on the economy, things we're looking at, don't expect a rate change, for rates to come down and for that to be an alleviation in the short term either. The next Fed meeting is March 18th. Jerome Powell, still the head of the Fed, is the head of the Fed, and we're seeing too much inflation still for him to make any rate decreases. He is still going to be the chairman for the April 28th meeting, and I would expect much of the same. Very unlikely we're going to see a rate change. In May, we'll have a new chair of the Fed, and we'll see how that plays out. The two things that the Fed is looking for are to stabilize employment and to control inflation. We have high inflation, and unfortunately, we're starting to creep up into troubling unemployment numbers. The December numbers were readjusted. We lost jobs where we had thought we'd earned some. The most recent report is that there was a job loss, about 123,000 jobs. And that, those are always preliminary numbers. There's always a revision to the unemployment numbers as as more information comes in. So, you know, it's a tough balance. There's employment is starting to become high, but inflation is still high, and so it's hard to make a rate adjustment and not cause stagflation, which is certainly a concern that we should, you know, kind of have on our radars. All that having been said, the volatility, the way the markets are, it's not comfortable. It is concerning. I'm for sure keeping an eye on things, but portfolios that we have put together are absolutely based on your risk tolerance, and we expect to have recessions. We expect to have bad days in the market. We expect to have volatility. But if we need to talk about that more, go ahead and schedule some time with me. Have a great month.